Okay, hello everyone, and welcome back to Common English Mistakes. Don't just learn, improve. So today we're going to first look at a very common mistake with the word because, which should be easy to avoid. We're also going to look at synonyms and other things you can use instead, but also how and when to use these. Finally, we're going to look at some synonyms, both words and phrases, which are going to be useful for you in writing, especially if you're doing an exam. So anyway, the mistake is up here. We went home because of it was raining. So just pause the video and try to correct the sentence. There are two ways to correct this. So see if you can get both. And well done if you said either because it was raining or because of the rain. And very well done if you got both of those. So now just pause the video and think, why do we use because of? What goes after these words and phrases? And well done if you said we use because with a clause, subject verb. We use because of plus a noun, maybe a pronoun or a noun phrase. The heavy rain, for example. So nice and easy, but just remember that rule because it applies to other conjunctions to give reasons. Instead of because, we can also use cause. We went home because it was raining. Only thing I would say there is that is very informal. To be honest, I would never recommend writing it, but people do, so it's not wrong. Now we can put because in the second clause of the sentence, like the examples, which is more common, but we can also have it as the first clause. The meaning's the same, but there's a bit of a difference in emphasis. So we've got the reason, the rain, we've got the result, that we went home. Just pause the video and think, which are you focusing on by putting because at the start? And well done if you said if you put because in the first clause, you're emphasizing the reason. Because of my mistake, we lost the match. Basically means the same thing, but that's the subtle difference. We can also use since and as, and generally they are synonyms, although there's a couple of situations where you wouldn't really use these. Here, it's the other way round. We often use these when we want to focus on the result. For example, everyone went home since there was no more work to do. Notice the comma before since, which we use. Not quite sure why, but generally we do. Also, I passed the exam easily. Results, as I had studied a lot. It is quite difficult to think of examples of this because it's not always clear. If there's a reason, there's usually a result. What I would say though is try to use this more with things which happen, like the example sentences. You wouldn't really say, I like him since, or I like him as he's honest. There's no real result here, so it does sound a bit funny. Also, although you're never supposed to do this in your writing, in the real world, when you say because, it's just in a one clause answer to a question. And for this situation, you must use because. Why weren't you at the party? Because I didn't feel well. Would sound funny to say since I didn't feel well. Also, we wouldn't use this in questions where you're asking about the reason. For example, you would say, was the reason you weren't at the party because you didn't feel well, not since you didn't feel well? For these reasons, my advice would be it's good to be aware of when to use as and since, but it's not really necessary. And certainly most of the time, native speakers say because, so that's what you want to say. However, there is one situation where I think it's very, very good to use as and since, and certainly you should be. And this is like in the following examples, where you're asking questions about the results. You say, as it's late, do you want to stay here for the night? Or, since it's going to rain tomorrow, shall we just go to the cinema? Again, I think in these situations where you've got a reason and result, you're asking about the results, very natural to use as or since. So that's all you really need to know for speaking. In other videos, it shows you 10 different ways to say because to make you sound natural. But of course, in the real world, native speakers are quite boring. They just use the same words again and again and again. So if you want to sound natural, you've got to do the same. However, one area that you do want to vary your conjunctions, expressions, etc. is in writing. So we're going to look at a few of those now. First one, and I think the most important one, is just due to plus a noun or a noun phrase, or due to the fact that. So for example, life is difficult due to the high cost of living, or life is difficult due to the fact that prices are high, a full clause. And basically a direct synonym, although a bit more fancy, is owing to the fact that. You can write those, you'll make the examiner very happy. Also, in the same pattern, you can use as a result or as a result of the fact that, but again, I would use these more when there is a result, a situation. So for example, she got the job as a result of her hard work, or as a result of the fact that she worked very hard. Also, there's a general rule that you don't want to start a sentence in writing with the word because, like you might do when you are speaking. However, you do still want to keep your sentences short and concise when you're writing. That's why these two phrases up here are really useful, because you can make a statement, a nice complete sentence, and then explain it with the second sentence. So for example, the cost of living is incredibly high in many parts of the world these days. Full stop. The reason for this is that, or this is because, this is mostly because, largely because, or this is in part because, when it's just one reason. Very useful to use, especially if you're writing an essay. And the final expression, in view of, again, quite formal, means because, but also more considering. So, in view of the bad weather tomorrow, the match is cancelled. But why this is really useful is to use in an essay, in your conclusion. If you can learn this phrase and repeat in view of the above arguments, in my essay, I believe that it's a really, really strong way to end an essay, will really impress an examiner. Anyway, explanation over. Main things to take away from the lesson. Most importantly, that mistake, because plus clause, because of plus a noun, pronoun or noun phrase. Also, be aware of when you can use as and since, although you don't have to in a lot of situations. And again, if you're doing some writing, maybe just learn those more formal ways to use because, although generally you're not going to be using them in your speaking. Anyway, in view of the fact that I release videos every week, do make sure to hit that subscribe button. It would make me very happy as a result of more people watching the channel. Other than that, guys, I'll see you in another video in the next couple of days. So until next time, see ya.